Hello everyone, welcome back. So today's topic is optimistic method in concurrency control. So let's see what do you mean by optimistic methods. So it is based on the assumption that conflicts of the database operations are rare and that is better to let transactions run to a completion and only check for conflicts before they commit. Okay, so check conflicts before they comment. Okay, this method is also called as validation or certificate method. Okay, it is also called as validation and certificate methods. So here we don't need any checking when the transaction is going on, so we no need to check, no checking when the transaction is going on. Okay, by transaction, while transaction is going. Second thing, we don't require any locking or timestamp technique here, so we don't require, no need of locking and timestamp. Okay, excuse me. So optimistic methods are work in three phases. So that phase are read, validation, sorry, validation and write phase. So these are the phases comes under transaction, that are read phase, validation phase and write phase. So let's see what do you mean by read phase now. Read phase means what? Here the read value of committed database are taken from the so read value of committed data taken from the database. So here we will take sorry, read values of committed data. Okay, whatever the values are there, we will take from the committed data from that database. Okay, now after taking that data from the database, we will create a private copy of that. Second is what? Private copy of that data. Private copy of that database values. So whatever values we are going to read from that committed data, we will create the private copy of that database values. Okay, next is what? We will going to update operation of the transaction are recorded in a temporary update data. So whatever the update is there in the transaction, it is stored in a temporary data. Okay, so whatever the update operations are there of the transaction are recorded in a temporary update files. Okay, so whatever the update operation is there, that is update in the temporary file. Okay, so how it is read phase work? It will read the value of all the committed data. Once it read the value, it will copy that data in a private file. Okay, but if there is any operation which is updated, that updated is stored in a temporary file. Okay, so committed data stored in a private copy while the update operations are stored in a temporary file. Okay, so next phase is validation phase. So validation phase means what? The transaction is validated to ensure that if there is any changes made, will not going to affect integrity and consistency of that database. Okay, means what? Changes will not affect the integrity and consistency of the database. Excuse me. So what this validation phase do? Sorry. So whatever the transaction is there, the validation is to ensure that there will be, if there is any changes made, will not affect the integrity as well as the consistency of that database. Okay, this is the main aim of the validation. If that validation test, okay, if this validation test is come positive, okay, if that validation test come positive, then it will goes to a write phase. If it is positive, it will goes to a write phase. If it is negative, it goes to restart and changes will be discarded. Whatever the changes are there, that will be discarded. Okay, so whatever the validation test is there, if it is come positive, then it will goes to a write phase. If it is negative, it will goes to a restart phase and the changes are discarded. Whatever the changes have done in the transaction, that will be discarded. Understood? So next phase is write phase. Now what do you mean by write phase? In this, the changes are permanently applied to the database. So whatever the changes is done in the transaction, it is applied to the database. So simple is that the changes are permanently applied to the database. Whatever the changes are there, that is permanently applied to the database. Next is what? In this phase, only read and write operation going to be performed. No read only operation is there. Only for read and write. Okay, not for read only. So it is not for read only, it will work for read and write. Okay, understood? These three phases: read phase, valid phase, write phase. Read phase will read all the values. Valid phase will check the validation, which will not affect the integrity and the consistency of the database. In that, if the validation test is positive, it will goes to a write state. Otherwise, if it is negative, it will going to restart and the changes will be discarded. Okay, write phase means what? Here only work on a read and write. Okay, not for read only, it will work for read and write. So whatever the changes have done in a database, it will permanently applied on the database. Okay, so there is some advantages and the problem of optimistic methods in concurrency control. So let's see what are the advantages. So first advantage is what? It is very efficient. Very efficient. So how it is efficient? The techniques is very efficient when the conflicts are rare. As we know, it's only checks for the conflicts before the commit. Okay, if that conflict is rare, then the technique is very efficient. Okay, next is what? Rollback is involved only on the local database, only on a local copy, only on the local copy of the data, not the data bit. It will going to involve only the local copy of the data. The database is not involved. Okay, so there is no cascading rollback. Okay, so rollback going to involve only for the local data, not for the database. Okay, next, what are the problems in optimistic methods? First, and the important is that the rollback may occur because of conflict and short transactions. As we know, conflict are expensive to deal with. Okay, since the conflict transaction may roll back. Okay, so as there is a longer transaction, suppose if there is any transaction which is longer, can have conflict, so maybe it is possibility to roll back because of that conflict and the short transaction. Okay, longer transaction are more likely to have conflicts and maybe rapidly roll back because of conflict with a short transaction. Understood? What are the advantages? What are the problems? Advantages is that the technique is more efficient when conflicts are rare. Second is that the rollback involves only the local data. The database is not involved. Okay, so there is no cascading rollback is there. Okay, second is problem in optimistic method is what? First is conflicts are expensive to deal with. Since the conflict transaction may be rolled back, right? The longer transaction are more likely to have conflict and may be rapidly rolled back because of conflicts with a short transaction. Understood? This is all about the optimistic methods in concurrency control. Thank you.